President Trump's son-in-law has a 41-story size problem at 666 Fifth Avenue. Jared Kushner's company still holds half of the $1.2 billion mortgage and hasn't paid a cent, forcing the Kushners to look overseas for investors.
Jeff Bennett explores the close relationship between Kushner, the Trump administration, and the Crown Prince that helped shape the deal.
I've never seen it be 99% of a fund like this. U.S. private equity firms still raise the vast bulk of their money from U.S. investors. This is extraordinary, unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it. What we know for a fact is he raised the $3.1 billion. What we also know for a fact is that only about $30 million of it actually came from investors in the United States. All the rest of it is foreign money. And of that foreign money, $2 billion of it came from the Saudis. And not only did it come from the Saudis, but the Public Investment Fund, which is the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, from which this money came, the board of it voted against giving the money to Jared, and they were overruled by MBS, who said, give him the $2 billion. I've been in this business 40 years. I have never seen someone get $2 billion out of $3 billion, get 2/3 of their money from a single investor. Usually a single investor might be a few percent of the fund, might be 5%, occasionally 10%. Never seen this. Another $200 million, we believe, came from Qatar. Another $200 million, we believe, came from the UAE. And then the $625 million that came from foreign investors that we don't even know who they are. So what was Jared Kushner doing in the White House? And by the way, as a fun fact, on January 6th, the famous January 6th, Jared Kushner was in the Middle East.
Steve, I heard from a prominent Middle East investor a couple weeks ago that there's not much out there on how Jared has actually been able to execute his funding. He's got all this money, but like you and Jonathan said, his background is not in private equity. And I've seen only one news report of a small European investment. He's sitting on all this money. Are the Saudis investing with him just to hedge their bets politically in case Trump comes back into office?
At least those are your words, not mine, but it's certainly a reasonable speculation. Yeah, we haven't seen him do a lot with this money. He has hired some people. I do know that. I think you mentioned to me during the break that you'd seen one investment that I hadn't even seen. I've seen nothing else about what he's actually done with the money. It is normal to invest this money over a period of several years, so I don't think we can draw a firm conclusion yet. But again, we're going back to a guy who's a real estate guy, and frankly not a particularly good one at that, who suddenly got $3 billion trying to do private equity deals, competing against people who've been in the business a long time.
These first two projects both involve land now controlled by governments, meaning a deal would have to be finalized with foreign governments.
At that point, Kushner, then 37 years old, and the Crown Prince, who was 33, spoke regularly. The New York Times reported they were on a first-name basis, calling each other Jared and Mohammed in text messages and phone calls. In a rare interview, Kushner told CNN that in those conversations, he'd offered advice.
Just to be transparent, to be fully transparent, the world is watching this.
After intelligence officials concluded MBS had given the order, the Senate condemned him.
Unanimously, the United States Senate has said that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is responsible for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi.
But Kushner wouldn't go that far.
I don't know what the administration's waiting for in terms of accountability.
I believe that there's a report that they're working on. They've been doing an investigation, and when they have the facts of the investigation, then it'll be up to the president to make a determination on what he wants to do.
The idea of Kushner not being involved in a second Trump White House is interesting because given his role as the president's son-in-law, the stuff he says to the president, if he were to be president again, would still carry enormous weight whether he has a formal role or not, right? What he says at brunch on a Sunday morning is just as important to Donald Trump as what his paid advisors might say. And I think you heard Kushner kind of expand on this idea of why he wouldn't come back but could potentially still be influential.
Do you pose a grave national security concern to the country, Jared Kushner?
Look, I can say that in the White House, I work with some phenomenal people, and I think over the last 2 years, the president's done a phenomenal job of identifying what are our national security priorities. He's had a great team in place that are helping implement it, and I hope I've played a good part in pushing those objectives forward. And I think because of the president's leadership, the world is safer today.
You know, Jared had a very easy life. He was doing phenomenally in New York, and everything he touched just turned to gold. And then one day he said, I want to come down and I want to have peace in the Middle East, and I want to do criminal justice reform, and I want to do all these wonderful things. And his life became extremely complex. And he wouldn't trade it. I don't think he'd trade it, because what he's doing is incredible. And he is doing great in the Middle East. I think you're going to have someday, before we're finished, I think you're going to have something very important signed. And I hope so. You're doing a great job. Thank you.